Greetings from the land of the Luceño. My name is Joelene Tamm. I'm a Squaxin Island tribal member and the natural resource manager here with the La Jolla Indians. I'm also a graduate entomology student researcher at the University of California, Riverside, studying under Dr. Mark Hoddle. Today's presentation is on indigenous and prescribed burn potential for management of the gold-spotted oak borer. Objectives for the research are to honor Native American traditional ecological knowledge and to reduce GSOB populations while reducing wildfire risk. Objectives are also to identify a landscape level management practice and to improve forest health. Current management practices for gold-spotted oak borer are cost and labor intensive. Why indigenous burning? Because it's working to heal centuries of laws and regulations aimed at excluding fire from the land. Indigenous burning because it honors those who were imprisoned or lost their lives for burning. Indigenous burning because it was used as a tool to increase harvests. And because we are working to reintegrate fire, and we need to remember who invented prescribed fire, and this will help give us direction for the future. The picture on the right here is a filbert weevil that emerged from some acorns I had collected. So hopefully we can prove what we already know, that fire reduces insects. Gold-spotted oak borer is commonly known as GSOB. Its scientific name is Agrelus arugitatus. It is a wood-boring buprested jewel beetle. It's identified by 6 gold spots. It's about the size of a grain of rice and has a 1-year life cycle, and it's dependent on an oak tree as a host. It spends the majority of its life protected within the bark, eating on the phloem, cambium, and outer xylem. GSOB pupates in the spring, and then the adults emerge during the early summer. It was likely imported from the mountains of Arizona via a load of infested firewood. In the mountains of Arizona, GSOB doesn't cause any significant issues, but here in California, the trees have evolved without any defense strategy to the gold-spotted oak borer. GSOB has caused the death of hundreds of thousands of trees throughout Southern California. It's pretty evident through bark bleeding and cracking with atypical woodpecker shallow foraging. Dead crowns and tree mortality combined with small D-shaped emergence holes are pretty conclusive that there's a GSOB infestation. The local tribes here have been ill-equipped to handle such high tree mortality. Tree removal costs are extremely high. Fuel loads have been high, and this is just compounding many issues that we have. This research is community-centered. I met the chairwoman at a local parade a few years ago, and we started talking about the gold-spotted oak borer. I'd asked to volunteer so I could learn more about the treatment protocols. She told me that pesticides were the recommended treatment, and I just couldn't believe that it was the only available treatment, but it turns out that I was wrong. And a lot of this research is aimed at, finding another way. We can't be dependent on pesticides for everything. This research also came about because the fire chief was concerned about the tree mortality and the safety issues that it posed to campers, combined with the excessive fuel loads. So this research is trying to solve a need of the community, and it has the support of the community, which I think that it makes it extremely powerful, and everybody has been so kind and willing to help. We think this might work because heat treatments and prescribed fire, you know, they're two completely different things, but heat is a byproduct of prescribed fire, and heat has been used to sterilize emerald ash borer infested wood. So we think if we find the heat temperatures required to kill gold-spotted oak borer, we can apply that to prescribed fire, and hopefully we'll come up with some good results. We think this is going to work because historical burning of oak woodlands by the native people has been documented by the early explorers. An example of the burning knowledge is that the mono burned in November under the incense cedars, black oaks, and pines. They would just let the fire go, and then the rain would just put it out. The ashes made the acorn trees grow better. The ashes also killed the bugs that fed on the leaves, bark, and acorn. So this research is also trying to prove what natives already know, and this gives us extra hope. And we also think this is going to work because effects of charcoal, ash, and smoke have been used to cure and store food for thousands of years. Yeah, my favorite is smoked salmon. Charcoal and ash cause injury to the insect's exoskeleton, causing the insect to dry out and die. We think this is going to work because GSOP exit holes are found on the lower tree trunk. Research has shown that the lower 6 meters of the bowl has the most exit holes. If there is an exit hole, it symbolizes that a beetle has successfully fully developed and has left the tree to reproduce. So within this lower 6 meters of the tree, the exit holes are concentrated on the lowest 3 meters. And so if all the reproduction is happening on the lower parts of the tree, this will be the area that's most affected by prescribed burning. We think this is going to work because the pupa chambers are located just below the outer bark. My undergraduate research shows that the pupa chambers are located 0 to 0.2 centimeters below the outer bark. And this is the area that's going to absorb the most heat from the fire. We think this is going to work because we know when the pupa chambers are occupied. We know where they are when they're home, and then we're going to design the prescribed fire to happen when they're most sensitive to the effects of the fire. The pupa chambers are occupied in March, April, and May, and emergence begins in May through November. So the earlier we can burn, the better. And this is all dependent, you know, on the conditions for burning. But emergence also happens when it gets warmer. So every year is a little bit different, and hopefully we can plan these burns to happen just before it starts to get really warm and the majority of emergence occurs. For our research design, we are identifying infested trees. The picture on the left shows 47 larvae that were extricated from 2 square feet of a brood tree. We're going to cut down and treat the trees, or we'll treat the trees and then cut them down, depending on what the goal of the experiment is. We're going to be monitoring the effect against controls, and we're going to apply this knowledge to pile burning and understory burning. But first, we need to verify the kill temperature for infested firewood. To do this, we're going to be testing the 60 degrees Celsius for 60-minute standard by inserting thermocouple probes into the bark and the firewood cores. We're going to be monitoring the humidity and temperature sensors that record the oven conditions, and we're going to set the oven to 70, 75, or 80 degrees until the core temperatures have been reached. This chart shows that the 2 samples of firewood placed into the oven have reached 60 degrees for 60 minutes. And then we're gonna examine this piece of wood against a piece that hasn't been treated to make sure that the infested wood produces beetles and the treated wood doesn't. The preliminary results show that it works so far, but the one pupa that I pulled out was still alive, but it rapidly desiccated, you know, within a day, which is unusual for larva and pupa to do that. So I'm pretty sure that this is gonna work. And we're also gonna use this data to sell salvage biomass. Within our one of our project areas, it's 20 acres. We have about 20,000 cubic feet of salvage biomass to do something with. So we're planning on making firewood, and if we can treat it in a kiln, we can sell it and help support the natural resource program here. We're also going to use this data to treat large woody debris and to design the prescribed burn. Next, we're going to be also testing miniature prescribed burns on infested stumps. To do this, we're going to pile burn around the stump while monitoring the temperature of the fire and the temperature, the ambient temperature, humidity, wind speed, and fuel moisture. We're going to be returning in a few weeks to examine survival rates, and then we're going to continue testing and designing this experiment until we obtain reproducible results. This is a chart of the first stump burn results. It needs work. It shows that the cambium and bark temperatures increased to about 40 degrees and then suddenly decreased to sub-zero temperatures. And I think that this error happened because of evaporative cooling. The plug that I put into the thermocouple, the hole with the thermocouple probes, probably did not hold and the steam escaped, and it caused the misreadings. So next time we design it, hopefully we won't have cooling temperatures, but we'll show that the temperatures rose steadily, but not hot enough to kill the tree itself. The fire temperature peaks are caused by the firefighters storing the fire to ensure a complete burn. So we have a lot to think about, but hopefully we get some good results. Our next steps are continue to work with the local state parks. They also have a restoration project and a burn crew. We're going to continue working with the La Jolla Tribal Fire Department. And we're also working with the Forest Service Pacific Southwest Research Station. The fire ecologist, Dr. Stacy Drury, is providing fire ecology oversight, and it's going to help us with recording all of the prescribed burn variables and making sure that this is a multidisciplinary research project. I would like to give much thanks to the La Jolla Fire Department and Tribal Fire Chief, the La Jolla Tribal Council, and all the people here that support me. And I also want to give thanks to my funders, the Cobell Scholarship, Squaxin Island Tribe, the American Science and Engineering, the American Indian Science and Engineering Society, the ASONA Scholarship, and many thanks to my professor, Mark Hoddle, and many research advisors, and lots of knowledgeable people that give me advice. I really appreciate all the help I could get. And this project definitely want to help with every single one of these people and organizations. Thank you for your time, and let me know if you have questions.
Welcome everyone to my graduate thesis presentation. I'm excited to share with you my research on exploring methods of developing a co-management relationship between a state university and a Native American tribe. My name is Zach Erickson, and I am a member of the Cherokee Nation and a graduate student at Department of Forestry, Watershed, and Wildland Resources at Humboldt State University. It is an honor to be presenting my research to you today. I would like to give thanks to the Intertribal Timber Council for inviting me to speak today, and also thank each of you for taking the time to allow me to share my research with you. This project was supported early on by the ITC's a Native American Natural Resource Research Scholarship. This is my second time at the ITC Symposium. I attended in 2018, driving all the way from Arcata, California to the beautiful Quinault Nation in Washington. It was one of the most amazing experiences of my life, and to be a part of the symposium now as presenter is such an honor. Here's a roadmap of what I will be presenting today. First, I would like to talk about the definition of co-management and how California has recently renewed calls for state agencies to engage with Native American tribes. Second, I will share examples of co-management in the literature and highlight research that has integrated Indigenous knowledge and Western ecological knowledge, or Western science. I will then share a brief history of the Wiyot tribe and outline how the objectives and methods of my study aim to work towards healing the relationship between the tribe and Humboldt State University. And lastly, I will share what I believe are the future implications of the project. So let's start this presentation by defining what co-management is. Co-management has been defined and interpreted in many different ways by many different people. Two definitions I offer today are the sharing of power and responsibility between the government and local resource users, and a real collaboration between partners coming from different but equivalent knowledges. Combining these two definitions, I see co-management as a blending of two different ways of knowing while sharing the decision-making power in a co-management relationship. It is important to note that within a co-management relationship, there's a continuum of participation with varying degrees of responsibility and decision-making structures. In co-management, there's historically been a real risk at co-opting Indigenous knowledge without offering opportunities to be a part of the decision-making process or the implementation of projects. While many co-management relationships have been entered between federal agencies and Native American tribes, this project will be looking at a relationship between a California State University and a Native American tribe. On September 25th, on California Native American Day, this last year, Governor Gavin Newsom issued a statement of administrative policy regarding Native American lands, outlining that state agencies shall seek to enter co-management relationships of natural resources on state-owned properties. This statement supported an executive order which acknowledged and offered a formal apology for the many instances of violence, maltreatment, and neglect of Native Americans by the state of California. This statement of administrative policy also reaffirms an executive order from Governor Brown that urged state agencies to facilitate consultations with Native American tribes. There has always been tension between states and Native American tribal sovereignty. It has been exemplified by the tribes seeking rights to self-determination through rights to hunt, rights to fish. Now that I've provided a picture of what co-management is and shown that there's momentum for developing these relationships on a state level, I would like to move on to background on co-management and studies that have integrated Indigenous knowledge with Western ecological knowledge, or Western science. I've listed a few examples of co-management relationships between federal, state, university, tribes, and local organizations. The Western Klamath Restoration Partnership has been working in some capacity since 2007 to restore salmonid habitat and to reintroduce fire back to the land while building a fire-resilient communities. They've done some amazing work. In Minnesota, work has been done to understand manoomin, or wild rice, within its socio-environmental context. The university has worked to build this partnership despite the difficulties of working past settler colonial structures. Also in Minnesota, the Chippewa National Forest has worked with the Leech Lake Band of the Ojibwe on various projects. On a power line project, the agency coordinated with the tribe to use mitigation funds to restore culturally significant plants and enhancing forest structure. Co-management with Native peoples is not unique to the United States. Around the world, agencies have realized the wealth of knowledge held by their indigenous populations and are working on developing their own co-management relationships. An example of this is the co-management of freshwater resources between the government and the Maori. Some of the lessons we have learned from the many relationships built between Native Americans and indigenous communities and government agencies around the world. These lessons will help us move forward to utilize both Western knowledge systems and indigenous knowledge to care for our lands. We must first address the past and present harms done by universities, state, and federal agencies. The UC Berkeley partnership, built with the Karuk tribe, shares how they had to reconcile that the individuals and institutions at UC Berkeley and other institutions not always act in the best interest of California Indian tribes. Understanding the ownership of data. There are many aspects of data that I had not even considered before this project. For instance, how much data that is shared by the tribe is protected, and how much can other researchers access through university databases through such processes as the Freedom of Information Act. By having agreements before starting research and collecting data, you can respect the tribe's sensitive data while still conducting publishable scientific research. For my project, I've made it a priority to find out what steps I can take to protect data and to not make any promises that I cannot keep. In many studies, tribal members have expressed that they want to meet partners outside of professional settings like meetings. Having dinner and showing up to events is where relationships can really be built. As a researcher, it is important to not push into spaces that you are not invited to. Institutions and agencies should understand that building these relationships takes time. Sometimes timeframes of university research or deadlines may not match up with the needs of a project. Commonly, turnover of agency employees can leave projects unfinished or hanging, while the tribes are left to catch up their new partners or their recent hires. One study suggests that promoting career residency can help reduce this turnover. The lessons that I've learned by beginning down this path of research is that I just need to talk less and listen more. Focus on my project is that we want to place the tribe as the experts, not perpetuate this issue with Western science as being in an ivory tower. I also want to avoid the common practice of claiming an outside expert has all the answers to solve tribal issues. Many authors highlight issues related to integrating indigenous knowledge with Western ecological knowledge. I've listed a few studies that work to integrate these two ways of knowing to produce scientific literature. The first example is from the Great Lakes region, where researchers visited the field with tribal gatherers from the Great Lakes Indian Fish and Wildlife Commission to identify areas of differing birch bark harvest quality. Researchers utilized this knowledge to develop an inventory protocol, which once completed suggested that the supply of birch bark is declining. The second study investigates impacts of cultural fire on basketry materials utilized by tribes in Northern California. The study included Yurok, Hupa, and Karuk expert basket weavers who shared their knowledge and assessment of stem quality and how the treatment impacted distances required to gather materials. Third is a study on how silviculture impacts beargrass production. Expert weavers from the Grand Ronde, Karuk, Siletz, and Yakima tribes volunteered to visit the study sites to classify beargrass quality within each site. The results of the study suggest that good beargrass sites have certain characteristics of downwood, stand densities, such as trees per acre and basal area. Such a study could guide future management to promote the culturally important resource. Now that I have shared examples of co-management, lessons learned from established co-management relationships, and successes and issues with integrating indigenous knowledge with Western ecological knowledge, I would like to share a brief history of the Wiyot tribe and share how the objectives and methods of my study and to work towards healing the relationship between the tribe and Humboldt State University through co-management of natural resources. The Wiyot tribe ancestral lands reach from Little River, or what is today known as Trinidad, to the north, and Bear River Ridge, or what is today known as Scotia, to the south. To the east, the ancestral lands reach Berry Summit, which you would see if you were driving east on Highway 299. Before contact with settlers in 1806, the tribal population was estimated to be between 1,500 and 2,000 members. By 1910, their population had decreased to around 100 due to disease, resource depletion, slavery, displacement, and genocide. Today, the Wiyot tribe is dedicated to preserving Native history and cultural material of their ancestors. Their Natural Resource Department works to help preserve and sustain plant and animal species significant to tribal heritage and culture. The department works cross-agency to restore the environment after centuries of harm. In 2019, the Eureka City Council voted to return Tolowa Island to the Wiyot tribe. This island was the site of the annual World Renewal Ceremony massacre on February 26, 1860. Upon the return to the land, the tribe immediately began efforts to restore the island and to remove the generations of degradation done to the land in their absence. This was seen as a step toward healing relationships between the city and the Wiyot tribe. I believe that this project offers an opportunity for the university to continue this community healing by working with the tribe as partners in co-management of Goopdeaton. A little bit about the project area. In 2018, Humboldt State University became the managers of an 880-acre tract of land in the watershed that the Wiyot tribe call Goopdeaton. Today, many know the watershed as Jacoby Creek. Through a reduced price sale and grants from various agencies, the California State University Office of the Chancellor entered ownership of the forest. This newly acquired tract of land, as well as the Humboldt State University campus, are located within the ancestral lands of the Wiyot tribe. There is momentum from the different departments on campus at Humboldt State University to move toward, at the very least, a collaborative management relationship with the tribe. The tract of forest within Goopdeaton is approximately 880 acres of industrial timberland. At the heart of the forest is a beautiful salmon-bearing stream. Within the riparian areas of this creek are large big-leaf maples that spread across the watercourse. Dense stands of alder and even residual old-growth stands of western red cedar are within the property. There's also a large component of young redwood, and it also contains Sitka spruce, western hemlock, and Douglas fir. The diverse understory found on this property and within this forest include plants of cultural significance to the Wiyot tribe. This tract of land is adjacent to parcels under the ownership of the city of Arcata. Much of the headwaters to Jacoby Creek within Goopdeaton are owned by the Arcata Community Forest and now the California State University Office of the Chancellor and managed by Humboldt State University. Now that we know a little bit more about the project area, I would like to share with you the objectives of my master's thesis project. The main objective of my study is to identify the management objectives of the Wiyot tribe and demonstrate a method of building a co-management relationship. Building on research of co-management relationships between government agencies and Native American tribes, I hope to support the management of Goopdeaton and promote unique research opportunities for students interested in tribal resource management, while also creating benefits for the Wiyot tribe. Next, I will share with you the methods I will be utilizing to reach these objectives. As a forester, I'm very used to quantitative analysis, trees per acre, basal area, volume calculations and estimations. But for this project, I will be utilizing qualitative research methods to achieve the objectives of the study. I will first conduct semi-structured interviews with the Wiyot tribal members. Semi-structured interviews allow for the interviewer to ask follow-up questions, to clarify, and allow participants to elaborate on their answers. These interviews will be based on two major themes: forest management perspectives, which investigates views on current forest practices and how they're impacting forest resources, and views on co-management, which asks, how do the participants imagine the relationship working? What are the types of expectations they have for the university? And how can we make this a relationship sustainable? The study seeks to capture the dispersion of viewpoints from tribal members. To achieve this, we want to select from different age groups and backgrounds and experience with forest management. Respecting COVID-19 protocols, I will be conducting all interviews via Zoom. Before each interview, I'll be showing a short video footage collected on a hike through Goopdeaton. This video will serve as a way to transport the participant to the forest. I initially wanted to conduct interviews at the forest, but because of protocols, this wasn't allowed. The interview method is called situated interview, which immerses the participant in the location that they will be asked questions about. I really sought this out after listening to a story of a tribal member asking an elder about a certain location. The elder did not remember much at the time, but the younger tribal member asked if they would be willing to visit the site. Upon viewing the site, details emerged that the elder had not recalled while sitting in their living room. After interviews are completed, the Zoom app will transcribe the interview to text. I will then read the transcript that it produces and listen to the interview to ensure the accuracy, because sometimes Zoom doesn't pick up everything. After the interview is transcribed and verified, I will conduct content analysis of the data. Utilizing the iterative and adaptive approach of ground theory analysis, I will identify themes within each of the interviews. As a forester with experience in forest management, I bring a wealth of knowledge to the position as an interviewer. I have specialized knowledge that allows me to ask questions that can get meaningful responses in regards to forest management, objectives, and impacts. This is also a benefit while doing the content analysis. Before beginning any work on this project, I presented before the Wiyot Tribal Council. And after the tribe approved the project, I developed a proposal for the Humboldt State University Institutional Review Board, or the IRB. The IRB guided me on developing interview methods that would protect the privacy of Wiyot tribal members that participated in the study. With both of these approval and careful selection and formulation of questions, I will actually be conducting these interviews within the next month. Now that I've shared a brief history of the Wiyot tribe, my objectives of the study, and the methods I will utilize to achieve those objectives, I would like to share with you the project implications. This project means a lot to me, and I'm excited that I have the opportunity to work with the Wiyot tribe and Humboldt State University. I believe that this project is important, and I'm hopeful that the implications may be lasting. It is my hope that this project sets a precedent on how research is conducted within Goopdeaton. Located on the tribe's ancestral lands, I believe that they should be included in every step of all the research that occurs on the property. With the introduction of Humboldt State University's tribal forestry option for undergraduates last year, I hope that this relationship offers unique opportunities for students interested in tribal resource management. And for foresters that have never considered tribal forestry, I hope that this co-management relationship can expose them to a different career path. When I was an undergraduate at HSU in 2018, there was no such program. I actually got the most tribal forestry experience when I visited the Quinault Nation for the ITC Symposium my senior year. Lastly, and most important, I hope that this project is just another step in building a lasting relationship between Humboldt State University and the Wiyot tribe. I would like to thank the Wiyot tribe and their Natural Resource Department. Adam Cantor and Helena Wilkinson have been integral to making this project successful so far. The ITC has invested in me in this project, and I am thankful for their support through the Native American Natural Resource Research Scholarship. I'd also like to thank the HSU Forestry Department and my advisory committee, Dr. Pascal Barrel, Dr. Kevin Boston, and Dr. Michael Dockery. They've supported me during this difficult past year of attending graduate school online. Lastly, I would like to thank all of you working to better forestry on Native American lands. You're all an inspiration to me, and I look forward to working with you in the future. Thank you so much for attending this online presentation. Really wish I could have done this in person. I look forward to answering any questions and especially hope to hear some comments on the project.
Thank you, Joelene and Zachary. These were great presentations. We're now open. We have quite some time for folks to ask questions, comments, and discussion with Joelene and Zachary. While we're waiting for folks to raise their hands or type out their questions, was there anything you wanted to add to your presentation, Zachary and Joelene?
No, I'll just, nothing to add, but I'll just, again, thank everybody for, taking the time to watch both of our presentations. Super interested in Jolene's. It was really good to see your presentation. And yeah, thank you, everyone.
Yeah, I appreciate everybody being here just to support student research, and it's a truly a great honor to be able to present in front of people that know a lot more than I do. So, hopefully I'll get to learn from everybody in the future. The study is just such a, I don't know why I picked such a hard topic. It's a great challenge, and there's so much about forestry and so much about fire science, and just putting them together, it's just like even more challenging. So I'd appreciate anybody's comments or concerns, and again, thank you for your time.
Well, it looks like we have, we do have a question from Tim Miller, Joelene, regarding the gold-spotted oak borer. Are those native to Arizona?
Yes, they are native to the mountains of Arizona. The first one was discovered in 1905. And probably for thousands of years, they've been living in harmony. They cause about 2% oak mortality in California, and they're a red oak species. But nothing major. It's either they don't have a natural biological predator in California, or the environmental conditions are overwhelming any natural predators that do exist out here.
Great.
And let's see, the next question is, the oak species that GSOB infects are mainly red oak species. The species that are targets down here are California black oak, which is Quercus kalagi, and coast live oak, Quercus agrifolia. It also attacks the intermediate between a red and a white oak, which is canyon live oak, Quercus chrysophyllus.
Great, thank you. Thank you for our folks entering in questions. Just as a reminder, if you don't want to type in your questions, you can also just click that raise your hand button and we can open up your mics.
Oh, I do want to add that the targeted range expansion for GSOB is all the way up through California into Oregon and Idaho. So be aware. We're trying to implement firewood restrictions on the La Jolla Indian Reservation. We're banning outside wood. Once we start selling the GSOB infested wood, we're going to have a ban on nobody taking it out. We're also only selling wood that has been dead for more than 2 years. GSOB reproduces in the bark, so once the bark has fallen off the tree is no longer infested.
Thank you. And our next question is for you, Zachary. You had a number of definitions regarding co-management, and we have a question of how do you like to describe co-management?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, to me, it's with this forest and kind of what needs to be done on the forest and how it can be used as a relationship building tool between the university and the Wiyot tribe. I see it as a, like I said, the integration of two ways of knowing. I liked the keynote speaker, Rob Malkimmerer, talking about how the lichen had to, the two organisms coming together to kind of survive. I kind of was thinking about this project in the same way, as these two ways of knowing kind of need to come together. They're very different and may not have ever been together to solve a lot of these crises that are, facing the planet. And to me, co-management is not holding the tribe as a consultant or like this, like we're just extracting the knowledge away from the tribes about, historically it's happened with cultural burning and other forest management activities. And to me, co-management is a real relationship would mean that at every step of the decision-making process, the tribe would have someone at the table approving or offering comments on. And so I think that being part of the decision-making process and making sure that the property is creating benefits for the tribe would be something that I would really strive for in a co-management relationship.
Great. And Charlie, if you wanted to add anything to that or open discussion, feel free to raise your hand. We'll open up your mic. We have another question for you, Zach, in the chat box. And this relates to your quote of Governor Newsom's apology regarding the meaning of ancestral lands. The question specifically is, are there lands not considered ancestral by the state and therefore unprotected by the executive order?
I don't imagine that there's any lands outside. I think that was just semantics, like words. I can't imagine that any valuable property that the state holds isn't within the ancestral boundaries of a Native American tribe. And so my interpretation of that was that every state agency should be seeking to enter these types of relationships. They should be training their workforce to develop the communication skills and develop relationships with the tribes to work towards co-management of these resources. And yeah, I highlighted that because that's something I'll be bringing up to the university to say, hey, look, the governor has outlined that this is a relationship that we need to pursue. And I will say that the university is working to towards the development of a memorandum of understanding and co-management. And my project seeks to really, make sure that at the beginning stages of this, the tribe's voice is heard, and the methods are kind of getting at one way of trying to, identify those objectives within the forest.
Great, thank you. Well, it looks like we also had some follow-up question and answer. Just want to draw folks' attention to in the question and answer box regarding whether firewood can be shipped once it's been debarked. And Joelene has some great details about best practices and how that relates to the research. Did you want to add anything or bring it into the room, Joelene, on that question regarding debarking firewood for shipment?
Absolutely, and oak poses another problem for debarking. It's not straight, and standard forestry equipment does not debark it. So the bark pretty much has to fall off on its own, which after the tree dies, it rapidly disintegrates and the bark falls off. It even falls off while it's still on a living tree. I think it's one of the major characteristics that helps me flag and mark trees for cutting before they're actually dead is once the cracking starts down to the sapwood, and the tree starts losing its live bark, the tree's going to die. And it's really hard when you're out in the forest determining which trees should stay and which trees should go, because it's just a challenging activity. But again, relating to the bark, the other researchers that I've spoken to haven't seen GSOB emergence after the first season, although some research states that GSOB can emerge up to 2 years afterwards. And it's really confusing because it's all based on the variability of which the research was performed and how accurately the researchers documented what they did. And then you kind of wonder if it's political too, because a lot of researchers and forest managers don't want infested wood chipmunks. So there's a fine balance between knowledge and implementation. But I'm trying to give you the best answer. So thank you.
You're both dealing with some very complicated questions and answers in your research that are, you know, it's that balancing of Indigenous knowledge and knowing and Western science and implementation that we're hearing a lot about.
A follow-up question from Charles Sink. What have I heard about co-management becoming more accepted by the agencies? I mean, if we just look at prescribed fire, I think that we can just see that the state agencies and everybody is recognizing that by excluding and limiting activity, Native American forest management activities, kind of like what Joelene has highlighted in her study, have altered forests in a negative way. And so I think that they're coming to understand, and have been, you know, certain people have for a while now, that this indigenous knowledge has shaped the forest for so long, and by excluding it, and you know, no management is a management decision. And so I think that it's coming around, and that's one of the reasons that I felt this research was important, and others do, is that we can developing a process that, again, doesn't co-opt the knowledge, but includes the tribes, and it helps support, you know, self-determination and rights to gather, rights to hunt, rights to fish. And I think it's there. We're just working on it, and it needs a lot of training on the part of the agencies. And again, like the career turnover and having people in these agencies that are interested in working with tribes and developing these relationships is going to be crucial, I believe.
I'll throw a question out there that might be linked to what Charles was asking. Have you seen any difference in terms of acceptance or understanding or embracing co-management from federal versus state agencies? Because you are working with a lot of state agencies in the state, but that's another consideration, is federal versus state.
Yeah, that's something I've been kind of trying to read up on, is like federal government having a fiduciary responsibility to support tribal sovereignty. And someone here may be more have more knowledge on this of what the state, like the state level responsibility is for that. That's something I have, like, legally, I haven't really been able to read into as much as I'd like. But I know that in Redwood National Park, they've done some work to kind of have tribes help out on, not help out, but be a part of land management activities. And I know there was a recent grad from Humboldt State University, Irene Vasquez, and that's a national park. So that's in Yosemite, the southern Miwok. But the state agency side, I haven't seen as many, you know, published studies as I haven't seen as much from the state side as much as federal, I guess, to answer the question. But that's not to say that people aren't working towards it, I don't think.
Thanks, Zachary. And I believe there's a question you're answering in the typing out, Zachary, in the Q&A. And I'm just checking to see if we have any other questions or comments or resources to share with Joelene and Zachary from our participants. And folks are encouraged to take a look. I think we covered most of the questions that we had asked, or we're about to finalize those. Any closing comments or thoughts, Joelene or Zachary?
Yeah, I think that just continuing to support, tribal and university research is going to go a long way towards implementing a lot of the changes. And although it's another really hard thing because you have to have an agreement with the tribal council and the tribe and make sure that you're holding up your end of the bargain, and the university owns your research. And so, just even for me personally, working for the tribe and the university, it's really complex. Technically, I have to think who owns which data and how to isolate those and make sure that there's no conflict of interest, or technically my jobs are conflicts of interest. So it's a really tough battle, but just having the intentions and the support to support activities like this, it goes a long way. Even though it's scary and it's ground that we haven't covered before. So yeah, again, thank you.
Thank you, Joelene. And we've got some words of encouragement on your efforts to halt the spread.
Thank you, I appreciate that. I'm also pushing to try and get some sort of momentum to get a California wood quarantine, because right now, if you look at the GSOB maps, they have interactive ArcGIS GSOB maps, and you'll see GSOBs. It's all through Southern California, and it goes, Orange County, Los Angeles, Riverside, San Bernardino counties, and then there's this valley. I can't remember the name, and then the coastal Sierra mountain range that it's a straight shot up through Northern California and then to Arizona. But if there's a wood quarantine implemented there, it would really help stop the spread of GSOB, because people, once they see a dead tree and they burn wood, they want to cut it down and sell it and burn it, and that just propagates the spread. And current management practices recommend that people don't move the wood for 2 years, but who's going to do that when they need money and when they want to heat their homes? So it's really hard to stop the spread, but implementing a ban would go a lot better on propagating the knowledge of, why you need to keep it in certain areas.
Just echoing what we've already heard in the comment, that wish you luck and perseverance and everything you need to continue your work. Zachary, any last comments?
Just thank you to everyone that's done research before me. Even Jolene's currently doing research to integrate these two ways of knowing, and she's also, like she said, she's working between academia and Indigenous knowledge and a state institution and a sovereign nation. Has been interesting. It's been there's tension. It's not easy work. She could have picked a much easier project that she could have just went through and published a paper, but she chose a tough route. And if there's any other students out there, there's a lot of support for these projects, and there's a lot of great mentors. And just thank you to everyone that's done research before us and is managing the forest now.